All right, here's John.
Thanks, guys. Coach, Colgate came in to this season, preseason favorite. Great defense. You just couldn't seem to get anything going against them offensively.
Well, that's a good team, and they beat us. They out-executed us. All right, it's plain and simple. There's no further explanation than that. They out-executed us in a lot of ways, and kudos to them. They deserve to win.
Coach, there's a lot going on in the league right now. You can catch up on it. You've been fond of saying all year long, everything is still in front of you. It still could be the big one next week.
Yeah, we look forward to that one.
Always. Coach, good luck. Go get him next week.
All right, go Leopards.
Gary, Michael, back to you guys.
All right, John, thank you. We'll return back to you in just a bit. But first of all, let's go through the highlights, or in our sense, the lowlights of today's ball game.
You know, both teams really struggling here, and Brenneman did throw the ball well in that first half, but he finds Nick Drought right here. Nick Drought's a big, tall, wide receiver. He made some big plays in that first half, and then they're going to punch it in after being stopped at the 1-yard line. They mixed the extra point, so 6-0 at this point in time. Lafayette here with a near interception. Later on, you'll see Colin Hurd come back, but this was the biggest play of the game. You're at the 1-yard line or 3-yard line trying to take it in. You run a first down play after picking up the first down, and your freshman drops the football there on a bad exchange. So I think Colgate made some good adjustments in the second half here, getting the ball outside, doing a nice job kind of making plays, mixing the run and the pass, finding guys. This was a huge play, a first down play where Lafayette was trying to think they were going to run the football, but they threw it, and they got the receiver behind the defense that time. That was a 4th down and 7. Created another first down, so they burned 5 minutes off the clock. This was a huge interception if you go back to the end of the third quarter, where Lafayette had just had a goal line stand, and then a couple really nice play calls there as you see Dwyer take it in for the touchdown, creating that 16-0 lead after they added a field goal late in the fourth quarter. But very disappointing for Lafayette. But for Coach John Garrett, it's on to next week. You got to come up with a big win. You know, for Lafayette, it always seems like it's 2 steps forward, but it was 3 steps forward, 3 wins in a row, and then 2 steps back. And this is definitely a step back in the psyche of Lafayette, because next week they got to go over to Lehigh and play a football game against a Lehigh defense that lost today but stood up well against Sacred Heart and only gave up 13 points. So somewhat disappointing for the Leopards today.
And even if you're having a bad year, the Lafayette-Lehigh game is big, but Lafayette with a chance maybe to pull out a Patriot League championship makes 51-55 even bigger. That's it from upstairs. We're ready to go down to John and Phil. They will wrap things up. You're invited to join us at 12:30 next Saturday.
Thanks very much, Gary, Mike. Good job by you guys on a rough day. Phil, cold and hard in a lot of different ways. It was tough down here today.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it just really came down to, I think, our inability to move the ball. You know, as we talked about, you know, and then field position as well. You know, that's a big part of it. You know, it's hard to put together a sustained drive when your back's up against the wall, and then defensively to, you know, defend when their backs are against the wall as well.
Yeah, it was absolutely evident early on this was going to be a defensive struggle, and field position played a key. And anytime you're talking about field position, you're talking about the kicking game. And the kicking game, Mike Joseph had some stats for us during the game about the difference in yardage and how that impacted just flipping the field.
Oh, absolutely, and that's, you know, proof is in that. You know, I think again, we talked about it at halftime in regards to the inability to, you know, get these receivers to get away from the defenders. I think you saw that very prevalent in that interception. You get, as a defender, especially with the conditions when you're going, when you know the other team's going against the wind, when you know your guy doesn't have that ability to separate from you, you play a little cat and mouse with him. So I think that was totally what happened on that Colin Hurd interception. He saw that coming. It was a long throw, and he just stepped in front and intercepted the ball.
Great minds think alike. That's exactly what Mike Joseph was alluding to. You know, the other thing we alluded to, we didn't talk about it too much here on the sideline, but the lack of depth at the wide receiver. We have really been decimated by injury, yeah. And I'm sure that you had a lot of young people out there other than Julian Spigner, a lot of youngsters out there, and they just couldn't get that separation, which was key.
Yeah, and that's it again, you know, and not only the lack of depth, we do have depth, but the guys who are out, you know, the Nick Pearson, the Zadok Scott, those are difference makers. Those are guys who can come up, you know, with those big catches. Those are guys that we can count on when you need a 3rd and short. You know, we had a number of drop balls out there today.
You know, it's a crazy league. There's so much parity. Everybody's bunched up. There are some things going on right now. We talked about this game maybe being a gateway to a Patriot League championship. That's not out the window yet. There's a couple things going on. Phil, you've been through it before. We're on the eve of number 155. It's the biggest game that most of these players, all of these players, will ever play. Take us in the locker room right now. How do you regroup?
Well, it's tough. And as we've talked about, unfortunately, over the last couple of years, we've always said, well, we've always got Lehigh, right?
Yep.
And you know, well, we still may have more to it than that. You know, results of that Holy Cross game, you know, to be seen. So you may have still the possibility of a shared championship. But again, you just have to regroup. It's number 155, and I think especially for some of these upperclassmen, they've never beat Lehigh.
Yeah, and it's always a factor. It's time to do a little scoreboard watching. It's always special. Let's see if it's not a little extra special next week, depending on what transpires with the rest of the league. That'll do it for us today. We're going to move inside in a little while. If you're interested in college basketball, we'll have that for you at 5 o'clock. And then again on the Patriot League Network, Lafayette soccer team playing against Lehigh over in Bethlehem